Excuse me. Hey everybody, what's up? This is Jeff. Oops, I forgot to set up my recording. I read my book on here. You're used to it. I'm gonna start a new recording here. LaCroix's coming back on me. That's fun. You guys are gonna love that. Hey, let's see how it looks like it's working. All right. How about this lighting? Look how red I am. It's disgusting. Holy shit. I really got to fix my whole setup here. But anyway, Portillion DeVere is dying, apparently. Chapter 28. Joran. Joran, get down. Joran swung his head to the left, seeing Sophris in the process of pulling the cameraman into the space between the seats. What the fuck? He'd barely pulled Torvald underneath him before the truck hit. Sophris's side of the carriage buckled. As the car broke into a spin, Joran heard the screams of citizens and the sickening crunches of human beings falling under and bouncing up and over the vehicle. Fuck! Joran kicked his door open with a strength he hadn't known he'd possessed. Joran kicked his door open with a strength he hadn't known he possessed. He'd be feeling that in his knees later, for sure. Bullets came in from behind the car, blasting over the crouched men, covering them with a spray of window glass. The driver was toast, crushed in the crash and peppered with bullets. The right side of his face was all over the passenger seat. Dum-dums. They knew we'd be unarmored. Inside job? Joran threw Torvald across the ground towards the cafe tables and rolled into a crouch, submachine gun jumping into his hands. He saw 3 men beyond the car, still firing. Sophris was doing that phasing thing, drawing the cameraman and himself down through the bottom of the car. Off to Joran's left, a group of black-clad, masked men had disembarked a black sedan and were firing in his direction. They were shooting from the hip, without concern for hitting civilians. Suddenly, Grundle's car was airborne, shooting straight up at an insane rate of speed. The guys over there tried shooting at it, but he couldn't see them make contact. Fuck this. Joran switched his weapon to underbarrel grenade launcher and took the shot. The round popped between the 3 men, throwing up concrete and an enormous cloud of smoke. Shrapnel flew from the blast, followed by a fine red mist. Joran pumped a mental fist, eyes squinted against the billowing dust. Beyond the ruined car, the 3 remaining assailants were getting back in their truck. Sophris, they're getting away. Do not fear, Joran. I won't lose them. Joran scanned in all directions, clutching his gun like his life depended on it. Sophris was gone. All that remained was the screaming. God, I love a good chaotic gun battle. I just wrote one for book 4, and it's, oh man, it's exciting. Chapter 29. Maki. The 3 men stood at the edge of the practice floor, hands behind their backs, heads bowed. Their masks were pulled down around their chins, Virtua goggles on their foreheads. Maki strode back and forth, vein on her head pulsating with violent anger. I am ashamed of myself, she spat, She carried a long, curved knife in her hands. 3 dead, none of the targets neutralized. I should cut my own guts out of embarrassment. The men shook with terror. She leaned in to face the man on the end. She whispered, "Goros, look at me." As he lifted his chin, the tip of her knife followed closely below. He met her gaze, gulping with fear. She stared, reading his expression. I am not the sort of teacher who harms her students. If you fail with me, there are others who will do that for you. She stood back, sweeping the blade before her in a lazy arc. I have little patience with failures. Go, return to your homes. Blend. I will call upon you when I have a job more suited to your abilities. The men bowed deeply. Goros shed a tear. As he rose, it dripped from his chin and hit the floor with a faintly audible plop. Then they were gone. Maki walked to one of the rear windows. She slid it open and took in the view. The smells of the city took her back to her childhood. It was a memory she'd rather forget. If the job must be done, then I will do it. Good old Maki. She's cool. Maki's cool and controlled, whereas Faline is like just out of control. Emotional, hot-headed. God, the city is so loud today. The freeway is like, and the sirens going. It's out of control. I thought maybe I could just wait for it to end. I don't think it's ending. Chapter 30, Ayana. Mother Ayana, please, come quickly. Ayana looked up from her meal, startled. Hefting her hammer, she marched to the curtain. As she reached to draw it back, Grundle stumbled in, carrying Portillion in his arms. Tears flowed from the big man's eyes. Grundle! Goddess, what has happened? Ayana yanked up her sleeves, revealing several faint pinpoint scars across her near black skin. Souvenirs of the mech explosion on near black is wrong. Like deep sienna. I don't know. I'll figure that out. Across her black skin, souvenirs of the mech explosion on Antares 1. Grundle hoisted Portillion onto his lap, trying to keep his head from rolling. I've no idea, my lady. He was uninjured in the fight, and then he just started. Mother, Matriarch Elion is asking for you. Shireen, the matriarch's second in command, was frantic. Ayana waved a free hand. Send her in. The matriarch floated into the room on an unseen force and dropped down with a groan beside the 3 friends. She waved Ayana backward and placed both hands on Portillion's chest. There's like motorcycles around. What the fuck is going on? fucking city. Like, how is it never this loud? Like the wind doing something weird with sound? I don't know. Sounds like a plane's right on top of us. The matriarch did that. Less than a second later, she shouted, "This man is riddled with nanites. Unless his blood is flushed, he will die." Ayanna and Grundle looked to each other, eyes wide with astonishment. "Help me get him onto the desk." Shireen swept everything off the large wooden desk. Matriarch Elion levitated him onto it, setting him down softly. "Grundle, open your arm." He stared at her, flummoxed. "What?" Ayanna grabbed the ceremonial knife from her belt. Mother Elion hissed, "Do it!" Grundle gritted his teeth as Ayanna tore open a vein with the blade. Her face was racked with guilt. She mouthed the words, "I'm sorry." Blood poured out of the wound. Grundle was immediately shaken, the blood loss instantly going to his head. Mother Elion shouted, "Form a hose! Insert it into the wound!" Ayanna tore open her robe and ripped a long, thin strip from her pale white silk shift. Grundle looked away, embarrassed. Shireen moved her hands over the strip, converting it into a tightly woven tube with sacred magic. Ayanna crossed herself, then used her fingers to shove one end into Grundle's spewing vein. He cried out in agony. The walls shook with the sound. Elion had sliced a gash into Portillion's neck, using a micro force field to keep the blood from rushing out. Shireen held the midpoint of the tube up as Ayanna shoved it through the field. As she did so, the field compressed around it, forming an airtight seal. After that, all was silent. Portillion occasionally made soft, gasping noises, but was mostly still. Time passed. As they waited, Shireen cast a spell to ease Grundle's pain. As the blood passed from him to Portillion, the toxic particles darted up and out of the tube as if searching for their next victim. As they dropped, they seemed like faintly flickering flecks of dust hitting the clean stone floor. By the end of the operation, all trace was gone. No. By the end of the operation, all trace of them was gone. The stupid phone buzzed right then. So I'm going to do that last line again, which apparently needs to be rewritten. By the end of the operation, all trace of them was gone. God, is this coming through? That is the most bonkers sound. Hold on. Just sounds like I'm in a wind tunnel or something. It's bizarre. I should be able to scrub it off the podcast with noise reduction or whatever. Let's go. Maybe one more chapter. Chapter 31. Faline. "You have the most elegant fingers," the captain purred, running her hands along Phaline's. They were stretched out on a divan on a they were stretched out on a divan. Divan? 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 Divan. I'm gonna Google this shit. How do you pronounce divan? I probably shouldn't even use words that I can't pronounce. Divan. All right. They were stretched out on a divan, barely covered with a silk sheet, Phalene's head resting between the captain's breasts. Motherfucker. Phalene was set. The justice was landing soon, and the money would start rolling in. Eventually, she'd be able to hire a team and go in search of Becca. But for now, she was content to delight in the pleasures of the flesh. She looked up at the captain, smiling her wicked smile. They were built for delicate tasks. She slid her hand down behind her, between the captain's willing legs. The captain arched her back and gave out a moan, barely audible to anyone without Phalene's cybernetically enhanced hearing. The stateroom's keypad buzzed. "Captain, there's a call coming through." The captain started, then stretched up straight. She wasn't pleased. "Who is it?" "I'm not sure. They said they want the red-haired woman." The captain looked at Phalene, eyes narrow with suspicion. Phalene adopted a quizzical expression. "Patch them through." "Yes, Captain." "Phalene, this is Red Lizard. Your mission has failed." Phalene leapt up, sheet flying, sweat-drenched skin exposed to the cool air of the chamber. She raced to the keypad and banged on it. "No! You're wrong! He digested it fully!" "You are no longer welcome in the Hall of Mirrors. Do not seek us out. Good day." Bzzzt. The transmission ended. Phalene punched the keypad, shattering the screen. She screamed as she crushed it, landing punch after punch until her knuckles were bloody. Behind her, the captain stared in horror, hand clapped over her wide-open mouth. Phalene heard the captain whispering, "The Hall of..." Phalene sighed as she fingered the hilt of her blade. Could that have just been the furnace? That can't be right. I guess the furnace is hella loud. I thought I had turned it way down. Oh well. Let's see. Was that 20 minutes? Where are we at? 18:45. So that's about it. So this is pretty much just plot. Phalene's hooking up with a captain. There's somebody called Red Lizard, the Hall of Mirrors. I call this starship the Justice, but I have another Justice thing happening later, so I might change that. All right. Well, this chapter's pretty short. I'll give you one more with Sophris. Chapter 32. Sophris. Sophris tracked the killers through the streets, anticipating their movements before they'd even decided where to go. They ran through apartments, over buildings, through tunnels, and over fences. Sophris stopped as they tiptoed through a minefield at the edge of a crumbling manor house at the edge of town. "Joran." Sophris, did you find them? I have. I believe I found their lair. What are their defenses? Hard to say. The surrounding area is barren and booby-trapped. I'll have to find another way in. Sophris studied the property from a small building and waited. As he waited, Joran filled him in on what was happening. Torvald's footage was all over the news. Joran was being hailed as a hero. Grundle and Portillion were safe within the Tower of Justice, and the cops were all over looking for the gunman. It had the look of the Shadowin all over it. Quick hit, in and out, high-profile targets, overwhelming force, no trace to follow back to its source. Sophris was certain that no great house would be connected to the crime, and even if the gunmen were caught, they would go to their deaths without revealing their employers' identities. The Shadowin had been outlawed for 100 years, and yet they still thrived on Calustria. Corruption ran deep on this planet, and no one was free from their taint. Taint. That's fun ending a chapter with the word taint. All right, you guys. Listen to the podcast. Everything is awesome with Jeff. That's me. I'm on all kinds of other shows. Shattered Worlds RPG, Something Wonderful Right Away, which I just taped another ep tonight. So good. I'll look up here. Is that my camera? Good Idea podcast. It's comedy, philosophy, design. Yeah. The War for the Tower. Bunch of great shit. Check me out. awesomepod.squarespace.com is probably a good website for you to find my stuff if I ever update it. And see you next time. Bye.